The rain hammered against the glass windows of Marcello's Italian restaurant like 1,000 angry fists, each drop a reminder of the storm raging outside. Inside, the warm glow of chandeliers cast dancing shadows across white tablecloths, and the faces of well-dressed diners who laughed and clinked their wine glasses, completely oblivious to the figure that had just pushed through the heavy oak doors. He was drenched to the bone, his tattered coat hanging from his shoulders like a burial shroud, his weathered face bearing the map of 1,000 sleepless nights on concrete and cardboard. The old man's eyes, however, held something that contradicted his broken appearance of dignity, that poverty couldn't quite erase, a spark that homelessness couldn't fully extinguish. He stood in the doorway, water pooling at his feet, his trembling hands clutched around something small and metallic that caught the light for just a moment before he tucked it back into his pocket. The restaurant fell silent, as if someone had pressed a mute button on life itself. Forks paused midway to mouths. Conversations died in throats. All eyes turned toward this unwelcome interruption to their pleasant evening, this reminder of a world they preferred to forget existed. The old man took one hesitant step forward, then another, his worn boots squeaking against the polished marble floor, leaving muddy prints that seemed to offend the very essence of the establishment. Marcus, the head waiter, moved with the swift efficiency of someone who had dealt with this situation before. His face was a mask of professional disdain as he approached the homeless man, his perfectly pressed uniform and slick-back hair representing everything the old man was not: clean, successful, belonging. Marcus didn't even try to hide his disgust as he grabbed the old man's arm, his fingers digging into the thin fabric of the soaked coat. The words that came from Marcus's mouth were sharp and cutting, telling the old man that this was not a place for people like him, that he needed to leave immediately before the police were called, that he was disturbing paying customers who had every right to enjoy their meals without being confronted by the city's failures. The old man tried to speak, his voice barely a whisper, something about just wanting to get out of the rain for a moment, about not having eaten in 2 days, about remembering when he used to be someone, when he used to matter. But Marcus wasn't listening. He never listened to people like this. To him, they were all the same: lazy, probably addicted, definitely a problem to be removed as quickly as possible. He shoved the old man toward the door with more force than necessary, and several diners nodded approvingly, grateful that someone was handling this unpleasant situation. One woman even applauded softly, and Marcus felt a surge of pride at doing his job so well, at protecting the sanctity of this upscale establishment. If you believe in kindness and second chances, if you believe that every person has a story worth hearing, please hit that like button, leave a comment below, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. You never know when you might be the person who needs a second chance. The old man stumbled as Marcus pushed him, and in that moment of imbalance, something fell from his coat pocket. It hit the marble floor with a metallic clink that somehow cut through all the ambient noise of the restaurant. The object skittered across the floor, spinning in the light, and came to rest near the kitchen entrance. It was a metal, tarnished and worn, but unmistakable in its significance. The old man's eyes went wide with panic, and he lurched forward to retrieve it, but Marcus grabbed him again, telling him to leave his trash behind and get out. That's when Antonio Marcello emerged from the kitchen, drawn by the commotion. At 72 years old, Antonio had owned this restaurant for 43 years, had built it from nothing into one of the city's finest dining establishments. He was a big man, not fat but solid, with white hair and hands that showed decades of hard work. He had been in the back, going over the night's receipts, when he heard the disturbance, and something in the tone of Marcus's voice had troubled him. Antonio believed in running a respectable establishment, yes, but he also believed in treating all people with basic human dignity, a value that seemed to be disappearing from the world with each passing year. Antonio's eyes fell on the metal, and he bent down slowly, his old knees protesting to pick it up. The moment his fingers closed around the cold metal, his entire body went rigid. His hands began to tremble as he turned the metal over, reading the inscription, seeing the ribbon, recognizing what he held. This was a Silver Star, one of the United States military's highest honors for valor in combat. The name engraved on the back made Antonio's breath catch in his throat: Captain James Morrison, Vietnam, 1969. The restaurant seemed to tilt on its axis as Antonio looked up at the homeless man with new eyes. Everyone in the dining room was watching now, sensing that something significant was happening, but not understanding what. Antonio's voice, when he finally spoke, was thick with emotion that he didn't try to hide. He asked the old man if he was Captain James Morrison, if this medal was his, if he was the man who had saved 17 soldiers from an ambush in the Mekong Delta 56 years ago. The old man's eyes filled with tears, and he nodded slowly, his shoulders sagging as if the weight of remembering was almost too much to bear. Antonio's own eyes were wet now, because he knew this story, knew it intimately, because his older brother Vincent had been one of those 17 soldiers. Vincent had come home from Vietnam and told the family about the captain who had run through enemy fire 3 times to pull wounded men to safety, who had held off an entire platoon of enemy soldiers while his men were evacuated, who had taken a bullet to the shoulder and kept fighting. Vincent had cried when he told that story, said that Captain Morrison was the reason he got to come home, the reason he got to meet his wife, have his children, live his life. Vincent had passed away 10 years ago, but not a day went by that Antonio didn't think about his brother's stories, about the heroes who never got the recognition they deserved. Marcus stood frozen, his face draining of color as he realized what he had done, how close he had come to throwing a genuine war hero out into the storm like garbage. The diners were silent now, many of them standing, some with hands over their mouths, others with tears streaming down their faces as they understood the magnitude of what was unfolding before them. Antonio very gently helped Captain Morrison to his feet, treating him with the reverence one would show to royalty. He spoke softly, telling the captain about Vincent, about how his brother had never forgotten him, about how the family had always wondered what happened to the brave captain who had saved so many lives. Captain Morrison's story came out in broken fragments, the PTSD that made it impossible to hold a job, the failed marriages, the slow descent into poverty, the shame of going from hero to homeless, the loss of everything except this one medal that he carried as a reminder of who he used to be, of a time when he had mattered, when he had been strong and capable and valued. Antonio wouldn't hear another word. He turned to Marcus and told him to prepare the best table in the house, to bring out the finest dishes from the kitchen, to treat Captain Morrison like the honored guest he was. Then Antonio did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He announced to the entire restaurant who this man was, what he had done, what he had sacrificed. He told them about his brother Vincent, about the 17 families who got their sons and husbands and fathers back because of Captain Morrison's bravery. He told them that this man had given everything for his country and had been forgotten, discarded, left to die slowly on the streets while everyone walked past pretending not to see. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Diners began to stand and applaud, and the applause grew and grew until the entire restaurant was filled with it. People were crying openly now, approaching Captain Morrison to shake his hand, to thank him, to apologize for living in a world that could treat heroes this way. One businessman pulled out his wallet and pressed several $100 bills into the captain's hand. A woman who owned a real estate company approached and offered him a rent-free apartment for a year. A lawyer volunteered to help him get his veterans' benefits reinstated. A doctor offered free medical care. It was as if the floodgates had opened and all the kindness and compassion that had been locked away behind walls of indifference came pouring out. Antonio himself made a decision that would change both their lives. He offered Captain Morrison a job as the restaurant's official greeter and host, a position of honor where he would meet every guest, tell his story to those who wanted to hear it, and serve as a living reminder that heroes walk among us, sometimes in the most unexpected forms. The salary was generous enough for Captain Morrison to rent a small apartment, to buy new clothes, to begin rebuilding a life that had been torn down piece by piece over decades. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you to look twice at the people you pass on the street, if it made you believe again in the power of recognition and redemption, please like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Your engagement helps these important messages reach more people. And please, before we finish, take a moment to comment below what act of kindness have you witnessed or experienced that restored your faith in humanity. We'd love to hear your stories. In the weeks and months that followed, Captain Morrison became a beloved figure at Marcello's restaurant. He gained weight, his eyes brightened, and slowly, the man he used to be began to emerge from the shell that homelessness had created. He still had hard days when the memories were too much, but now he had people around him who cared, who understood, who wouldn't let him fall again. The medal, cleaned and polished, hung in a place of honor in the restaurant's entrance, a reminder that heroes don't always wear capes, that sometimes they wear tattered coats and carry the weight of invisible wounds. And Marcus, the waiter who had so callously tried to throw him out, became Captain Morrison's most ardent supporter, having learned a lesson about judging people by their appearance that he would carry for the rest of his life. The restaurant thrived more than ever because people wanted to be part of this story, to shake the hand of a real hero, to be reminded that beneath every face is a story worth knowing, a soul worth saving, a person who once was someone and can be someone again. Antonio often thought about that rainy night, about how close they had come to committing an unforgivable sin of indifference, and he thanked God and his brother Vincent that he had seen the medal, that he had recognized the moment for what it was, a chance to do something right in a world that had done so much wrong to a man who had given everything.